Matthew Delp, and in 2019, I was coming back from Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and I go up because I live up here in Virginia, and I cross over into Virginia into the Cumberland Gap. Well, as I slam on my brakes, I about hit this wolf-looking, mangy-looking dog, and it looked like it was a little bit bigger than a coyote, but it just looked like a mangy old wolf or something. And there's not supposed to be any wolves around here, but I believe there's red wolf. But this thing was really rough looking. And as I slammed on the brake, and at the time I was talking to ex-girlfriend of mine on the phone, and I'm like, gosh, about hit that thing. And I'm cussing at it, and it's giving me this look because I had to slam on my brakes to keep from hitting it. And it's giving me this look like, watch it. And check this date. Okay, it's on September 13th, 2019. It's a Friday the 13th, and it's a full moon that day. You can look it up, September 13th, 2019. As soon as it jumps into the woods, as soon as it crosses that line into the woods, I get a phone call, and it's unknown number. My phone always shows a number unless it's blocked, and then it'll show restricted. It never says unknown. It'll say restricted, or it'll have the telephone number. I don't answer it because I'm on the telephone. I'm like, that's weird. Got an unknown call. And then all of a sudden I see there's a voicemail. And I play back the voice. So I listen to the voicemail. And it sounds like a Native American. And they're yelling. At first I thought it sounded like somebody sneezing. But it sounds like they're saying, ow, ow. And just here recently, I was doing some Native American research, and in one of these groups, they're saying, can we get it's AHO, AHO for certain people or whatever. I guess that's a hello or hey there, or I don't know. And I, I know it sounds crazy, but I believe whatever that thing was, it called me from it sent that message to me whenever it jumped into the woods because it was immediate. I mean, I about hit it, and I was going off, and people listened to this voicemail because I still got it. And we played it on the computer, we played it backwards, and it sounds like Native American saying something, like he's yelling at me, like to watch it.
Well, that is
Hey,
interesting. I've heard several other people talk about phones behaving oddly, like get calls from people that several calls maybe from someone and then no one's on the line, someone that they didn't have any contact with anymore. I've heard of phones just, of course, going dead, batteries running low. Just really odd behavior from phone systems. So maybe there's some kind of a connection that they can bleed into those things or cause something to
I believe
happen.
it's the frequency. I believe it's their frequency, their vibrational frequency that and that's one way for them to communicate. My first thought is after that call and stuff, I'm like, what in the world did I encounter a skinwalker? There's tons of burial mounds around here, but it's weird stuff like that has happened to me. I've had multiple things like that happen, just crazy stuff uh, that I don't think I would have had if I didn't have that encounter because I was pretty stubborn and you know I thought everything.
Have you seen any of the orbs or craft or anything like that in the sky?
Well, I've seen. Okay, now my nickname is the Badass Monster Hunter because now I've just gone up after everything. And the reason they call me that is because I kind of go nuts at times out in the woods trying to provoke stuff. There's no fear in me. If it kills me, it kills me. At least I want to look this thing in the eyes. But on my on this journey, I've come across lights. I've been to, have you heard of the Brown Mountain lights?
I have not.
Okay, over in North Carolina, there's a set of lights on Brown Mountain that they just appear and they have no clue what they are. And the very first account was from somebody from Great Britain had come over to survey the area, and he wrote about it in the journal, these lights. Now they tried to uh, write it off as a gas, and it's not that. They said, well, it could be train light. Well, there weren't any trains there. There are no trains back in that time. And these lights mysteriously will appear coming from Brown Mountain. Uh, Ralph Lell was a politician, and this was back, I believe, in the 60s. And he had heard about the Brown Mountain lights, and he owned a furniture store in Hickory, North Carolina. Well, he had went to Brown Mountain, was hiking down there. It's in the Linville Gorge in North Carolina, and he was hiking, and he seen an orb, and he followed it in, and it went into the mountain, and supposedly he come across there was some aliens in there, and cave was loaded with crystals and stuff. Well, they told him that they would allow him to come back if he didn't tell, about their entrance and stuff. And they was wanting him to help, raise the consciousness level and the love and light and all this stuff because, the earth, we're destroying ourselves and all that, that story. And so he, I guess he become pretty good friends, or uh, acquaintances with. They let him in several times, I guess, and they let him bring a mummified alien body out with him one time. Well, he had it in his little Hickory, North Carolina uh, furniture store that he ran, and they supposedly the government came in or Men in Black, whatever you want to call them, and they uh, came in and took the body. Uh, they had so that kind of spiked my interest to go to. All these people said they've been there, they haven't seen nothing. It was my third trip there, and I seen the lights and got it on video. It's on my YouTube channel. You can see them, and it's weird. These lights, they will appear. It's like somebody's hitting a spotlight, and all of a sudden, boom, it's gone. Uh, and there's no explanation for it. It's pretty cool looking actually, but the activity and stuff around that area, that gorge, is kind of crazy. Um, when I was there, also, some people go missing around the Linville Gorge all the time. I think they said about 50 people get lost in there every year. And I was at the Linville Falls right there in that area. So I had video of the orbs there in the Brown Mountain there in the gorge. And there was this woman that come up to us, and she asked us, she was probably in her upper 20s, early 30s, asked me and my girlfriend if we had seen her parents, that they had been missing from the falls. They got separated and they've been missing. Well, we said we hadn't passed nobody, so we were looking around, and uh, we don't see anybody. And we show back up. We see the girl again, probably about 30 minutes later, and ask her if she's had any luck. And she's like, no. And she's kind of panicky, stuff like that. And we said, well, we'll help keep looking. Well, we're looking around there. She goes off up the trail that we had just came from. And I was like, well, they probably sitting up in the car waiting on her up here at the parking lot or something. So we hiked back up to the As we're hiking up back to the parking lot, this was wild. My girlfriend looks at me and she said, "Was that girl even real?" I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Her vibe that she gave off, it just seemed odd." And we get up to the parking lot, and my car is the only car in that parking lot. And she's like, "I told you." And I'm kind of like, I try and, rationalize stuff. And I'm like, she goes, "We didn't pass her on the way back out." And so we kind of hike back down there and we don't see her anywhere. But it's odd stuff like that is what, I mean, it has led me. I don't know. I don't know if I attract it or what, but uh yeah, it's just it's like it's like I'm walking around with a light on or something for the strangeness. It seems like now ever since that encounter. And you was talking about orbs and lights. Uh Last year we had uh we were in North Georgia where I just came from, and I was laying there, and all of a sudden in my head, um, it's like I'm being told, "Hey, intuition is telling me, hey, you need to go up to the mountains." So I get up and I tell my girlfriend, I'm like, "Let's go to the mountains." She's like, "It's 1:45 a.m." I said, "I know." I said, "Let's go to the mountains, though." I said, "I just got a feeling. Let's go to the mountains." She's like, "Okay." And we get up there to the mountains, and it's really quiet. But now this is in middle of March, about this time of year. No lightning bugs out, none. They don't come out till the end of May, beginning of June, and they come from the dirt, the ground. Well, she's asking me, she's like, "Are lightning bugs out right now?" And I said, "No, it's too cold. They don't come out till, late spring into summer." And she's like, "Well, look at this." So there's these lights up in the tops of these trees, and you can see them. Now I'm colorblind, but she said they were different colors. She said they were red and some were orange and yellow. And they look like they had an intelligence to them. And so she goes, "It's fairies." And I just kind of laughed. She's like, "No, seriously, it's fairies." She goes, "I'm going to ask them if I can video them." And so she starts talking to these lights, and they have an intelligence. She's like, "Can I video you?" And they just start, coming in closer. And so she took it as a yes. So she starts videoing, and you can see these lights. They have an intelligence to them. They come up above us and they form into this big mess. And then they, boom, they're just gone. And she got it on video. So the whole light thing, that's probably about my craziest kind of light stories.
Well,
Seeing that type of,
you mentioned having that impression that when to go and where to go, and then you have
mm-hmm.
this experience, of course. But do you have those? Do you get like any kind of insight about future things, or any kind of intuitive impressions?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I can go out into the woods. I can tell you if something's out there or not. I can feel the energy now. Uh, Everybody tells me I'm high energy. I don't know. I guess it'd be high vibrational or just just my energy is off the charts. I can tell. I know it's kind of crazy, but like if I gamble, I can sit there and I can say, like, if we're playing cards, it pops in my head. I say it out loud too, which kind of gets me in trouble. But what card's coming next? And I mean, just dreams, stuff like that. If I have a dream, and if it's really emotional, within usually about 2 weeks, it comes true. Uh, yeah, I've got uh, my senses, everything, my intuition. I don't know what you call it, maybe psychic a little bit. Uh, is pretty high on the charts, I guess you could say.
Hi, I'm Linda Eastburn of Linda Eastburn YouTube channel, and I have a new book out called Threshold to Encounters. It's about 40 years of research and experience with all of these wild cryptids that many of you I know have encountered yourself. You can find it on Amazon.com. Do you think that has any bearing on your ability to see these things and all of these unusual things happening to you?
I believe it does. It absolutely does. I think that uh, it's basically like I walk around with a light on my head, like because I can feel if there's an energy there, and I think it. I don't know if it shocks whatever it is or uh, something. It's like, how does he know I'm here? This person knows I'm here. This person, uh, how's this person, or they feel my energy? I don't know. I'd
Yeah, I
say it's
think there's
probably, but
probably some form of a connection anyway that your personal frequency, I call it a signature frequency, has and you think that initial Bigfoot encounter probably set that somewhat in motion?
well, it put my ego. It kicked my ego probably where I clicked my ego off um because I'm so stubborn. I would have tried to write it off as something else, but it had to be that aggressive encounter to wake me up. Say, hey, everything you're taught is not real. I'm looking at something that's not supposed to exist, and you know, I don't. I'm not trying to go out here and prove it to anybody that this is real or that's real. I need answers for myself because it's like that life chose me. I didn't choose it, uh, but it has wakened me up. Uh, I believe we've all probably got the ability. Uh, some of my research partners, they do remote viewing. Uh, my research partner that passed away went to the Monroe Institute and studied for 12 years, if you're familiar with that place. Uh,
Yeah, you said
just
you go out to the meadow and research sometimes. I know quite a few people. I've interviewed quite a few people, but also met Trey. And
uh,
just some really interesting things have happened out there in that research location. Um, Tell me about some things that some experiences you've had out there.
at the meadow, it's kind of weird. There was one time that I had a dream about a old woman, kind of like I don't know what you call her, like an old hag, maybe. I don't know, something from the mountains, like an old woman. And then another teammate of ours, Kristen, had a dream that night. My dream was right before I went to the meadow, and her dream was while we were there camping at the meadow. And hers was the same thing. Nobody knew about my dream. And she's like, this is weird. I just had a dream about this old lady or whatever, and she's in her face screaming or something like that. And my girlfriend looked at me. She goes, "You had one last night, didn't you?" Same thing. I was like, "Yeah." Uh, so the meadow. I think it's just where the veil's thin uh, with the portal stuff. Of course, I've seen the video. I've watched a couple team members disappear in thin air. Never believed in portals until then, so I had to try and get a scientific uh, grasp on it. It's kind of like, so reached out to a professor from Iowa and asking them if it was actually possible portals, and what has to happen. He claimed, hey, yeah, they can happen, and said that you need uh, the magnetic field has got to be off, and it has to be such a high power of energy, like a solar flare. And the solar flare will, if it creates a natural portal or wormhole, it's gonna be circles within circles, from what like the Native Americans and stuff said. But what we encountered out in the meadow, it was a cube. And so it was designed. It had, shape, it was symmetrically. form. So I know right then it was a third party that created that. It wasn't nothing natural. It was somebody that had actually created it, you know. I know in Oak Ridge in 2012, they was trying to make mirror universes. They was running nuclear power down a tube and with magnets and stuff and trying to create mirror universes. You can look it up. I've actually got the professor's name and email. Uh, but they were trying to create this stuff. So my first thought is the whole metal thing. Is that government experiment, or is it an ET maybe trying to create this? Because I know it wasn't naturally made, not being shaped like a cube.
You know, the
Uh,
cube shape has shown up in a couple of different places that people I've researched. I live in Missouri, and
mhm.
in our we have a group meeting once a month on mostly it's on UFO activity, but there was a man described, a friend of his, not far from here. We have something called the Joplin spook light, which is a phenomena of a floating light that just comes and goes, and it's been there forever. And no one has ever been able to narrow down exactly the source of this light that's been there. And it's been there. Native Americans talked about it in the area. You know, it's just been there forever. But in
Very
that
similar
same
to the Brown Mountain, then.
exactly. But in that same area, someone saw a cube again. It was a box-like thing that seemed to be energy-based. It was creating a sound of sorts. And also, I interviewed Katie Page in Colorado,
Mhm.
and
Yes,
she was on the
very
Colorado Ranch where they have all of the phenomena, kind of like they have out at Skinwalker Ranch. And she
right,
also described a box that she saw when she was very young, and it was making a sound, a buzzing like sound. It was there, and then poof, it was gone. Um,
right.
I know the box that you guys talk about, the cube that you talk about, that is seen primarily through a special source of light. You can't see it with the naked eye, in other words. Is that right?
Correct. We couldn't. You had to. They seen it through the uh, FLIR,
Mm-hmm.
and so, and I believe the thermal, because you could see the heat signatures. That's when the people disappeared. And yeah, like you were talking about with Katie and stuff out there. Yeah, I'm. I know Katie really well. Uh, I've researched with her as well. Uh, yeah, all this stuff is going around. But if you look, okay, if you ever seen the movie Hellraiser,
I have not.
well, it's it's a horror movie, but there's a cube. It's a puzzle. It's a cube, but it is opens up a portal to hell. So it's in everything. This cube is, and that's my first thought whenever I seen that portal and that thing, because in that movie, these people wanted to know what hell was like, and they had this cube, and that cube was the portal. It opens up and it takes them to wherever. Uh, and that's my first thought whenever I was like, that's definitely man made, or not man made, but a third party entity has created this thing. It wasn't naturally made, especially to be, shaped like a cube, geometrically designed, uh,
Yeah, you
and the
don't see
radiation.
Yeah, you
Uh,
don't see cubes in nature very much. I mean, I guess
no,
rock structures maybe, but otherwise, nature doesn't have a lot of cube-like formations.
no, it hasn't. Somebody in intelligent form has created this, and they use, instead of probably solar, they use nuclear power or something, because there's radiation. The radiation spikes are off the chart, something that they can control. Uh, but it'd take that type of energy to create this, to make that frequency to, I guess, past whatever you want to call it, time travel, go to different places, different. dimensions, parallel universe, whatever you want to uh, call it.
Yeah, and I know you know some remote viewers and such, consciously it seems that people can maneuver through time and space quite a bit. There've been a lot of research on that, and I do that work myself sometimes. Haven't run into anything negative with that. So I think if you're just doing it on a conscious basis, you're probably okay. But if you try to port, physical things through some of those dimensions, that might be a different challenge.
Mhm. But I believe a lot of this stuff also, there's certain areas uh, that are uh, pretty much just designed. If you believe in parallel universes, like I'll kind of explain one experience that I had. Uh, I was in up in the Smoky Mountains, down through Roan Mountain and the Smoky Mountains up to there, that line of area. There's been report of these feral people, kind of like caveman type beings. Uh, People go missing. Like I think it's 1984. It's when a little boy went missing, and they searched for him for like 2 weeks, and then he reappears after 2 weeks later up there on Roan Mountain, and the boy shows up. He's perfectly healthy. Found him. They found him where he went missing at in the same spot. And he claims that he could see his mom. He was waving, yelling at her, but she could not see him. Uh, and then he said that he stayed in his cabin. And I believe he said it was his grandpa that had uh, fed him and all this stuff. But his grandpa had been passed away. Then, like I said, this was in uh, it would have below freezing temperatures at night. It was warm during the day, but you know how it is. Like right now, the weather's so crazy. It was that time of year, and 2 weeks later, after that one, a young boy, was about 19 or 20, stepped off a trail to use the bathroom, but it got hot during the day, and he took his shirt off, and he stepped off the trail to use the bathroom, and his friends could not find him. And then about a week later, he shows back up in the same area that they were looking for him, and he had a curtain from a house wrapped around him. And he said that there was a house just right down the thing there, and he stayed in it. And it was cold, so he took the curtain and wrapped himself up. So my whole theory on this stuff, and after I had kind of a weird experience out in Cataloochee Valley, because it's lined up right there on the North Carolina side of the Smoky Mountains, where you see all these feral people, these caveman type people. Uh, I'd went down there, and it was late November. It was cold. My parents asked me if I wanted to ride with them to Gatlinburg to see the Christmas lights, and I was like, sure. So this was in 2020, and I'm like, sure. And so we get down there, and for some reason, my dad's like, let's go to Cataloochee Valley. So we get down into Cataloochee Valley, and we taking pictures. I see some elk. I get out, take pictures of the elk. Uh, See a mama bear and two little ones. Video them. My dad gets out, takes a couple pictures, but I'm out the longest. I'm out there almost pretty much the whole time because Cataloochee Valley is like an old settlement, old town down in this little valley there in the Smoky Mountains. And like I said, it's where a lot of feral people have been seen, cavemen type beings. Well, my mom don't get out of the vehicle. She's taking pictures from inside the truck. My dad gets in the truck, and I'm still out there. Well, I notice my phone, the time and date have changed on my phone. I'm like, well, that's odd. Then I start physically getting sick. My dad is physically getting sick. He's vomiting. I'm vomiting. So we get in the truck and we leave out of there. And as soon as we get out of that area, we start feeling fine. Nothing wrong with us. Uh, And we get looking on our pictures, and my mom's pictures were right where, you take a picture with your phone, and it's as soon as you open up your gallery, it's the last one you took, in order from the date and the time. I open up my phone, nothing. All the pictures, video that I just took was gone. I was like, what? No, I was mad. I was like, got all these elk, got all these bear, and all these old structures, houses, and stuff. And it wasn't even on there. And it was probably about 2 months later. I'm scrolling back looking through some old photos. And when my phone had changed date and time, all those pictures that I took went back in time in my camera roll, which I think is very odd.
It's
And
like
then
a
that,
time warp or something. Maybe time
exactly,
warp it was.
exactly.
Yeah.
Now I'm physically sick the rest of that week. I was actually talking, me and Trey were talking about it the other day. Uh, so I'm physically sick. I think I'm having a heart attack or something because of blockage or something because I'm getting up. I can't even go to the bathroom without being out of breath. And so I go to the doctor and they tell me my hemoglobin is 5.5. It's supposed to be in between like 12 to 18 for a male. So they told me my heart wasn't getting no oxygen, uh, that it because my hemoglobin wasn't carrying no oxygen to my heart. I could have a massive heart attack anytime. So I had to have 2 blood transfusions. They do all these tests on me. They scan me. They cannot figure out to this day what caused my hemoglobin to drop like that. Uh, no internal bleeding. Uh, been tested for cancer. Everything. And I asked them if radiation, and they said absolutely radiation. That would be one of the side effects. It would, my blood count. So there had to be some type of time warp, something parallel, And I was sitting there thinking, well, if this is where all these cavemen are being found at, something is getting crossed over in this area. And like I said, this is uh, just my opinion. I believe there's something there that's with these parallel universes that stuff is getting crossed over and getting stuck on this side or that side. And if I probably stayed there longer or went somewhere a little bit closer or something, I could have been. I don't know. I know it made me sick. It changed my date and time, like I went back in time. And I got pictures on my gallery to show it. You can see right there, it shows up in August at like 11:30 at night. But the actual pictures are taken during the wintertime. So there's no leaves, no tree. You can tell the pictures during the daytime, and it is wintertime. It's not August, with the trees and the green grass and stuff like that. It's complete dead wintertime in my gallery now.
That is really odd. I don't think I've heard of pictures doing that. I've had a couple of times when time is way off, gets really confused on watches or computers, but you just think, well, that's some kind of a glitch at another place and time. But I don't think I've ever heard of pictures actually having the wrong date on them. That's something I'll really watch out for. So, do you think that you had some time in there that you just don't even remember what occurred?
No, I didn't have any missing time, but I believe I was caught. It's like I was trying to be pulled in through. That's where I physically got sick, nauseous, started vomiting. As soon as I got out of there, my phone changed back correct. Uh, I wasn't sick anymore. My dad wasn't sick. Now my mom that was in the vehicle, all her pictures were fine. She didn't get sick, nothing. So I don't know if it was I believe I was the veil was really thin there and the whole timelines were starting to overlap each other.
That
That's
very
my
well could
personal
be.
opinion.
I remember some years ago, we were looking for a site where some unusual activity had taken place, but we ended up at a place that we saw in advance and just kind of intuitively ended up at this kind of strange little remote area that had a rather deep pond, and it was a lot of trees and foliage around it, but the road kind of half circled this pond. And I say pond, but it was really kind of a small lake. It looked very, very deep. Couldn't really tell, but every time I took a group out to this location for research, people would get nauseous. They would feel a very strange energy and they would be nauseous. When we would leave there, of course, they'd feel better, but it was a strange place. I didn't personally get sick, but certainly a lot of people I took there did.
Now, you could have been the whole Bigfoot infrasound stuff too. That's about the same side effect. If somebody gets hit with that, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's crazy," thinking, but tigers use infrasound, elephants use infrasound, and military use it for crowd control, and it's usually the same, basically the same side effects. Now, I would have thought something like that possibly with me if it wasn't for the time and date and everything changing on my phone, the whole time lapse going backwards.
How much
But
did the time change on your phone correlate at all with the picture um,
yes,
time
all the
frame?
pictures,
Mhm.
yeah. But like when it changed the date and time, it went back. Now I've been to several other locations that it's done the same thing. And what I usually do now, so I will know to go and look for pictures, is I will have somebody take a picture of my phone showing the wrong date and time. So that way I will have a reference where to go look, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, so you can see if the pictures leaped in time as well.
Exactly. Now I have not had any pictures linked back like that though in all these other places, but except for out there at Cataloochee Valley.
Have you heard of any other people having any kind of similar experience to that?
Actually, not really. I just think of I think I was kind of one of the lucky ones that uh that about slipped through a a portal or a time, across the veil to a different timeline. And because you've heard different cases, for example, the dude that got hit by a cab driver, I think it was back in New York in the 50s, I believe, just appeared in the middle of the road and then boom, got hit by a cab and it killed him. And all his clothes and stuff was authentic from like the 1800s. And that man, they looked him up, and he had went out for a hike. His family said, or he went out for a walk that one night and just never showed back up. And the FBI actually closed it as a missing person report. It was no longer a missing person. But all those years, and all of a sudden, boom, just appears out in the middle of the street in uh, New York and gets hit and run over. That'd be my luck. But
Yeah, that's kind of a strange one too. Absolutely. Yeah, time is a funny thing. I think we think of it as just being something that we kind of organize, cycles by. But time is actually an energy field, and if you start working with time, whether it be scientifically or whether you work with it consciously, it can be an energy field that apparently can be manipulated.
oh yeah, absolutely. See, uh, time doesn't exist really. It's something that we had made up to, I guess you could say, measure whatever you want to call it. But are you familiar with the Dawdleston House over
N-
in England?
No.
In 1985, they had an Apple computer. This couple at this, they called it Dawdleston House. They had this Apple computer, and all of a sudden, no internet back then, anything like that. All of a sudden, they seen that they had something downloaded on their computer, and it was a message from a man that claimed to be from the 1400s. They start conversing with him. They're like, whoa, that's kind of weird. They thought somebody's messing with them. Now, prior to that, they thought they had ghosts in the house, that poltergeist activity, chairs being moved, stuff going on. So they're talking back and forth with this man from the 1400s, and this is before the internet. And he claims that somebody had brought, he said the devil, something devil lights, a man had brought these devil light object, which was a computer that he was using to talk to them in 1985. But he lived at the same exact house and place. It wasn't the same house, but the same place that where their house is built. Uh, they looked at some of the old stone that was underneath it, and it correlated with what he was talking about with his time era. Then somebody from the year 2109 came in and started leaving messages and told them that they were changing some of the messages because the people in 1985 don't need to know everything, that it could basically the butterfly effect on the future. But the people from 2109 that was messaging them said they were a gas form, that they were basically a light being in the future, everybody's light beings. And it's pretty crazy. If you get a chance, you ought to look at it. So I start thinking they would leave stuff like a letter or something on a area, and he would tell them where to leave it, and he would respond to it. Uh, like physically, these objects and stuff were being moved because you've got three different time periods actually going on in that one area all at once. So if our consciousness is set right here, we're stuck in this time zone. I think there's something else is going on here too in a different time period, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, yeah, I understand what you're saying, and we can become very drawn into that or aware of it. And
Hmm.
do you think this phenomena you're talking about, do you think that this is why or how a lot of people do go missing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they slip out and they get caught in these certain areas, and they just walk out and all of a sudden they don't recognize where they're at anymore, and uh basically vanish. It's like with the whole portal incident out in the meadow. Uh uh the Army Ranger, he noticed his whole environment change. He stepped out. Uh Bob, he said that he explained to me, he said that you're looking at the stars, you were looking at, the grass, the foliage, stuff out there, and it all went dark. There was nothing else. It was like just a void that he had stepped into.
And I
And of
know
course,
both of those men that went into that portal, I mean, I think both of them are deceased now, but do
yes,
you know
they
if
are.
anyone else has gone into that portal, if they've even attempted that again?
No, we have not come across it yet, so
Okay.
it hasn't come back. It hasn't appeared back to us. But uh, of course, we're still trying to see if all the research that we can. Hopefully, we can get it again. But a lot of them think it was ET activity that created it. Uh, but the whole meadow in general, it's perfect for what that professor from Iowa is were telling us, that with the magnetic field and stuff, because Trey was looking at his compass. It was kind of going haywire, and I'm like, that way's north. He's like, well, how do you know that? And I'm like, well, the sun always rises in the east, sets in the west, northern hemisphere. You're on the north side of stuff, you're going to get less sunlight. So look at the moss on the trees, and you'll have more moss on the north side than you do on the south side. And he's like, okay, that's pretty. And of course, I showed him, and uh, I was correct, but his compass wasn't picking up the magnetic field. There was throwing it off. Uh, kind of crazy, and it our devices, stuff like that out there. I've been out there. We'll step one place with the camera, and we will all of a sudden, boom, the energy, the battery goes almost dead. Then we'll step back, boom, back up to 80%, working fine. Go back to that same area, it drains it immediately. Uh,
What do you think
you
causes
know,
the
it's
drain?
I don't know if it's the elements there in that area or what it is. I think that whatever it is pulling energy, and if it's pulling energy, then of course, we're energy and water. So wonder if that's something that kind of helps the pull. I don't know.
I don't
I
know
don't
either.
know.
Of course, UFO researchers for years, I've heard of the same thing happening. A lot of Bigfoot researchers, even when they don't experience any other unusual phenomena, oftentimes the electronic devices will just drain. And, that's just the way it is.
I don't know if whatever if it's a hot see and Bigfoot stuff too as well. These Bigfoot creatures and stuff like we've had stuff like encounter stuff like that, and I've had my thermal pointing right at it and it not work. My flashlight go dead. Like it pulls the energy from this stuff. Turn around and point it the other direction, starts working just fine. Step away, it's working fine. But towards a area where we were having activity and it goes completely dead.
Yeah. It's kind of an amazing thing, but obviously it does influence electronic devices of all sorts. And obviously, there's a lot of things at play here that I don't even know if we know for sure everything that's happening. But obviously, there's a
Right.
reality out there that we're not fully aware of, and we interact with it all the time, but we don't fully understand it.
Exactly. It's like, for example, uh, if these things are high energy beings, then they're probably going to pull all the energy they can. I mean, you've heard reports of these creatures and stuff having not reflective eye shine, but self illuminating eye shine.
Yes.
And and technically, if their eyes set up like ours, they wouldn't be if they were self illuminating. If our eyes self illuminated, it would blind us. We would not be able to see. So it makes you wonder what's going on with these beings that they're able to have that self illuminating eye shine and not reflective. Um, you know, the energy level has got to be, it's a lot higher. Um, these things are going to take a high energy being anyhow if they're going to be using their vibrational frequency to tear through these veils, whatever, to go in different dimensions, whatever you want to call it. But I just think that it's kind of funny because I was talking about this weekend actually the whole umbrella thing at the Georgia Bigfoot conference. Everybody wants to classify everything as a Bigfoot, and then they argue about what Bigfoot can do and its abilities. And I'm trying to explain to them it's totally different beings, totally different things. It just depends on what you want to consider as a Bigfoot because we don't have a certain thing they said, hey, this is Bigfoot.
Yeah,
You
a
know
way to categorize it in
exactly.
definitively. Yeah, we don't have that yet. Because you were talking about the self-illumination of Bigfoot through the eyes or whatever. I'm doing some research right now on biophotons. Humans also have
Hmm.
a huge amount of biophotons within us. We create those all the time through our internal process. Um, but they have found that people that can move objects produce a lot more of those biophotons, and also people who are highly psychic and are in a deeply concentrated state produce a lot more of those biophotons. It makes me wonder if these beings, Bigfoot, could possibly have higher levels of biophotons, but also able to direct those more specifically, like a flashlight.
Very possible. Very possible. I need to do some research on that actually. Now
Yeah.
that you're mentioning it,
Well, I have a book coming out very soon, so it does cover quite a bit of that material.
good deal.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, yeah, that's that's interesting. I'll have to definitely have to look into that.
Yeah, there's so much that we don't understand about our own being, much less all these other beings that are out there, but also the interactions we have and how those um occur, those how events occur in our life. And You're one of the lucky ones. You have an analytic mind that's able to do some research or think about it more deeply. But sometimes we just fall into the trap of just not wanting to deal with those unusual experiences, or just put them into some kind of an odd superstitious location in our thinking.
Right. Yeah,
Well,
it's definitely made me uh I don't know, I guess I could say I'm more aware of my surroundings and everything else now. What's going on, you know.
yeah, exactly. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end our interview today. This was really interesting. I'm so glad that you joined me. I would love to talk to you again sometime.
Yeah, definitely. I've like I said, I've been to New Orleans hunting vampires. I've been to Area 51. I've done all kinds of crazy stuff.
Well,
But
that's what makes life interesting and fun for me anyway.
yeah,
So, okay, I'll
absolutely.
let you go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.